When I first watched the Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes, and this was just last year in 2025, I didn't fully understand Coriolanus Snow. At first, he seemed almost decent, polite, controlled, even capable of kindness in moments. And then, of course, he descends into something much darker. But what really caught me was not the story itself, it was the way people online talked about him. I just kept seeing comments like he was always evil or from page one he was despicable. And I thought, wait, really? Because if that's true, why do I see moments where he genuinely struggles, where he seems human? I felt almost a responsibility to read the book, to sit with his mind, because understanding how he justifies himself, it's unnervingly instructive. So in this video, we're going to talk about how Snow thinks, what makes him a true villain, the dangerous ways ideology and power shape his mind, and the real world parallels hiding in his choices, things that feel uncannily close to history, capitalism, authoritarian regimes like Nazi Germany. But first, let's remember who Coriolanus Snow becomes. He is the man who turns children into televised entertainment, poisons political enemies without hesitation, and rules Panem through fear, starvation, and spectacle. There is no redemption waiting for him. So when the story puts us inside his head, the question isn't how did this happen? The question is how did someone learn to justify cruelty and live with it? And Snow grows up in the capital, but he's not secure. His family lost everything after the war, leaving him hungry, ashamed, terrified of exposure. From his grandmother, he learns one role that quietly shapes everything. Snow lands on top. Not kindness, not justice, survival. And here's the thing. I saw this everywhere in history and modern systems. People in collapsing empires, colonial hierarchies, authoritarian regimes, they justify cruelty the same way. Snow never thinks the system is unjust. He thinks the system owes him. Even while suffering, he believes he deserves safety, status, and control. This is privilege under pressure. And Snow's first real transgression happens in the arena when he kills Bobbin. At first, he is afraid, reactive, simply trying to survive. But then afterwards, he admits to Tigris that the act felt powerful, not relief, not trauma, but power. That should have triggered accountability, but instead, Dr. Gall reframes it for him. Humans are beasts, violence is natural, control is necessary. It's eerily reminiscent of real-world regimes that normalize violence as survival. And Snow learns that violence doesn't require reflection, only explanation. And the second killing, Mayfair Lip, is different because she's not someone he loves or respects. She's just someone who threatens his secrets. And there is no moral conflict. This shows how power begins to solidify in his mind. Violence works, problems disappear, accountability evaporates, and some lives are simply expendable. And here we see the frightening blueprint for cruelty. Remove guilt, elevate necessity, justify the act, and then we get to Sejanus' plaint. And this is where the book and Snow's mind gets fascinating because Sejanus is Snow's closest friend. He is genuinely good, honest, unwilling to look away from injustice. And Snow does love him, at least in this complicated way. Someone like Snow is capable of love. Snow is learning that power and empathy cannot coexist easily. And Sejanus represents accountability, the part of the world that insists on moral reflection. And Snow cannot tolerate it because when Sejanus challenges him, questions him, confronts him, Snow faces a choice that defines the man he will become. Reporting Sejanus is the first time Snow knowingly betrays someone he loves. He knows it's wrong and does it anyway, and he justifies it with a moral framework that chills me every time I read it. He tells himself and almost everyone else that he owes a duty to Panem, that the city, the system, the capital itself comes before personal loyalty. His philosophy is loyalty to the collective, the state, even when it destroys lives, is paramount. He rationalizes that Sejanus' death is necessary to maintain order, to survive politically, and to secure his future authority. Dr. Gall then reframes it again for him that this is not cruelty, that it is inevitability. It is proof of understanding human nature. Ideology becomes self-defense, and morality bends to necessity. And after Sejanus dies, Snow feels guilt. And that is important. He's not hollow, he's not incapable of care, but he chooses rationalization over accountability. Saying, I had no choice, he tells himself. It was my duty. And this is the moment where power stops being frightening and becomes stabilizing. And cruelty ceases to be a failure. It is confirmation that his worldview works. This is how people in history, whether in authoritarian regimes or exploitative capitalist hierarchies, justify atrocities while still sleeping at night. They convince themselves it is not evil, it is functional. Then there's Lucy Gray. She represents freedom, unpredictability, the world Snow cannot control, and he makes the choice to discard connection for control, certainty over love. He keeps his father's compass and discards his mother's belongings. He chooses domination over empathy. And that, friends, is why Coriolanus Snow terrifies. Not because he suffered, not because he killed, but because he loved, he felt guilt, he understood empathy, and he chose power anyway. And this is how power thinks, that violence is justified and that accountability is optional. Rules do not apply to the exception. And Snow wasn't born evil, he was born dangerous by refusing responsibility, by rationalizing betrayal, by allowing ideology to rewrite his morality again and again and again. And the patterns are all over history: totalitarian regimes, oppressive social hierarchies, even structures in modern capitalism, where power protects the powerful, while normalizing the expendable. And Snow is a warning. Cruelty is contagious, but rationalization is what makes it permanent. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If this video changed the way you see Coriolanus Snow, let me know in the comments. Do you think he ever had a real chance to choose differently, or was fear always stronger than his humanity? If you enjoy character studies like this, stories about power, accountability, and the choices people make, consider subscribing. Thank you.